Hello everyone, this is Mrs. Grabakis. I am going to be chatting with you about solving rational equations today. So everything that you have done so far with simplifying, adding, subtracting, all has a play in this lesson. So we're going to take all of those tools that we've talked about up until now and apply them to solving rational equations. So we need to be aware of the fact that a fractional equation is an equation involving rational expressions, which means that there's a variable in the denominator. So that means that we have some restrictions on our domain, right? So there's a possibility of us going through and solving these fractional equations and getting answers that are restrictions on the domain. So we have to check those as we are walking through our equations and solving them. So the guiding steps for this is factor, right? That's what we've been doing all along. That's the first step for everything is factor. And then we want to find the common denominator and state the domain. You can kind of mix step 2 and step 3. Next thing, multiply the entire equation by the LCD and solve. And at this point, when you're solving, you need to exclude any values that are invalid based off of the domain and the restrictions on the domain. So for this one, first thing we try to do is factor. So we want to state the restrictions on our domain and then find our LCD. So our domain for this one is A has to be all real numbers, except for A cannot be 7. And that's the only restriction. So now the next thing that we want to try to find is the LCD. So the LCD for this one is 2 and A minus 7. So then again, we multiply everything by what it's missing, by parts of the LCD, and then simplify the numerator as much as possible. Now, for these equations, what we can do is now that everything has a common denominator, our focus can be on the numerators. So what I do is I actually drop the denominators and focus on simplifying the numerators as much as possible. We've already stated the restrictions on the domain, which deals with the denominator. So we've done as much as we can with the denominator, with stating the restrictions and the LCD. So we're focusing on the numerator now. So this is the numerator after applying the LCD. Now we're going to simplify this as much as we can. Because it looks like we're going to have a quadratic, we want to try to get this equation equal to 0. Now that I've done so, it's a time to factor. So this one is a quick factoring. What multiplies to negative 28 and adds to negative 3. That's a negative 7 and a positive 4. So that means we want to set A minus 7 equal to 0 and A plus 4 equal to 0. So our two answers are A equals 7 and A equals negative 4. But remember, we have to look back at the restrictions on our domain. Our domain said that we can have A be all real numbers except for 7, right? So that means that because of our domain and the restrictions on our domain, we cannot have A equals 7 as one of our answers. So our final answer is only A equals negative 4. Okay, next equation. Again, we look to factor, so it looks like we do need to factor this last rational expression back here. So we're going to take a second and do that. So we have a difference of squares situation here that I've factored. So now we want to take a second and state our domain and our LCD. So our domain is all real numbers except for x cannot equal negative 5 and 5. Our LCD is x plus 5, x minus 5. So the difference of this ends up already having the x plus 5 and x minus 5, so we don't need to do anything to this last one. So that means we just need to make our focus be multiplying what we're missing here and here. So then again, all of the denominators will end up being the same, so our focus is now the numerators. So here are the numerators. Now we need to take a second and simplify as much as we can. No quadratic here, so this is just a simple linear equation to solve. So we have positive 10. The only restrictions on our domain were -5 and +5. So that means that x equals 10 is our answer for this problem. Last one for us to go over. Again, we look to factor first. No factoring necessary for this. Everything is as factored as it's going to get. So then our next step is stating domain and LCD. So our domain is x has to be all real numbers except for 0 and 1. Our LCD is 2x, x minus 1. And so our first fraction is missing the 2 and the x. Our second one is missing the 2 and the x minus 1. And then the last one's missing the x and the x minus 1. So now that all the denominators are taken care of, our focus is on the numerators. And now we work on simplifying as much as we can. So it looks like we still do have a quadratic, so getting it equal to 0 is our best option. So now we have to work on factoring this. We want to try to figure out what to split the middle term into, mostly because that leading term is now not 1, so we do have to do a little extra thinking for this. So we want to figure out what multiplies to 6x squared and adds to -7x. Hopefully you recognize that we will have a -6x and then -x that will get us that. So now we're going to work on splitting and grouping to factor this. So this is how that quadratic factored, which means that our two answers will be x equals +1/3 and x equals 2. If we consider our domain, we had restrictions at 0 and 1, which are not these answers, which means that both of these are considered our answers for this one. Work on your homework for this section. Make sure you come to class with questions. Let us know if we can clear up anything.